What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 5 of the TRIF3CTA Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Frank. I'm with my esteemed co-host, Coop and Dave. Today we got NFL news, followed by some MLB free agency moves and trades that are happening, as well as a little review of the NCAA Tournament that we are all still a little bitter about, except for Coop. He's in a pretty good mood, probably. I'm going to kick off today's show, getting started. Obviously, mine and Dave's beloved Kentucky Wildcats were beat out in the first round by the 15th ranked St. Peter's Peacocks. The Peacocks literally ran the show the entire time against the Kentucky Wildcats. Our guard play was absolutely abysmal. A lot of the blame currently on social media is being placed around John Calipari, and quite frankly, I've not seen a lot of people taking up for John Calipari, but I'm going to take this opportunity to do that. Now, with that being said, I do think Calipari had made a few mistakes during that game, mainly using timeouts later in the game to set up strategic plays to maybe not make it to overtime or even take the time to, develop a good game plan going forward late in the game. But anybody that watches Kentucky basketball knows he relies on his athletes more than the other. He relies on his athletes to do their jobs late in games. He hardly ever uses timeouts within the last minute of a game. If it is a timeout, usually it's the player calling it, getting in the tie-up or something like that. But in his opinion, he thinks that he's going to take his players versus the other players in a one-on-one situation, roll the ball out and play. A lot of people don't like that. I quite frankly don't like that. But people were calling for his head and calling for him to get fired, and I just don't know that that's exactly what Kentucky fans would want, considering the fact that there's only about 3 or 4 names that are on a short list of people that I would even venture to say would do well here. We've talked about a couple of them, namely Tony Bennett, Jay Wright. Some people are throwing Rick Barnes' name out there. I don't understand Rick Barnes at all, simply because the dude's won one NCAA tournament game, or made it past the first weekend of the NCAA tournament once in his last 10 tournament appearances. That's not what Kentucky basketball fans want. So I would pop down a little bit on the Fire Calipari banter on social media, because y'all do remember Billy G, right? I don't think that would ever happen again, and I don't think they would ever fire Coach Calipari. If he leaves, it'll be on his own terms. But I don't think that is exactly what a lot of people would want. Once it happens and we get whoever comes in, you're not going to be satisfied. It's not going to happen. But with that being said, there's a lot of NFL news going on. But before we get to the NFL, we're going to hit the MLB. The lockout ended, spring training has started, and there's moves being made by a lot of teams. First team I'm going to hit is the Cincinnati Reds, because I'm a Reds fan. With that being said, what the hell are you doing, Cincinnati Reds? Biggest thing that comes to mind is the Winkler trade to the Mariners. With Suarez attached to it, we kind of just gave Suarez away. We let Castellanos walk throughout at the end of the last year. We have a decent core of infielders coming back, but you traded Sonny Gray, you trade Winkler, who is one of your top hitters, middle lineup order kind of guy. You don't really get a ton in return. So that's kind of one of the trades I highlight in terms of my disappointment of the Cincinnati Reds. I don't think they're making moves right now that helps them win right now. I don't even know if they're making moves right now to help them win in 3 years. But what are some other names thrown out there that you guys have that are probably big splashes in terms of their new teams?
Yeah, I got to say the Dodgers. I mean, they were already a great lineup, and getting the biggest free agent on the market, in my opinion, Freddie Freeman. This could be one of the best offensive lineups we've ever seen, right? I mean, they got to perform, they got to stay healthy, but I think they can be in that conversation. And a team that's had the recent success they have, to go out and get somebody of that caliber, I mean, they're really separating themselves even further. It's huge. I can't believe he left Atlanta. He felt like a career player, to me anyway. So I think the Dodgers, they've made a couple other moves, but that one alone makes them a winner in free agency.
I think they are the perfect example of why we need a salary cap. I mean, we have teams over here that are just trading away their guys or rebuilding, and then you have the LA Dodgers that they will pay whatever they need to in luxury tax because now they're going to roll out 9 All-Stars. They're going to have 4 potential or former Cy Young winners and a loaded bullpen. And I don't even think it'll be close in the NL West this year with how well the Dodgers have just kept their roster intact and then reload. And, and if they aren't performing to standards, we know exactly what they're going to do in July. They're going to go get the All-Stars that just played in the All-Star game. So Dodgers are going to Dodgers.
Yeah, it kind of makes me mad because they are a big market team, but on the other hand, like they're making moves every single year. They're always going out and grabbing, a big name pitcher. They have 2 of the best pitchers in the major leagues on their starting rotation. They have a bullpen they roll out every single guy from the bullpen throwing 100 plus. They did lose Kenley Jansen, but they have Gratterall on the back end there, who is ridiculous in terms of just going in and getting outs for them. And their farm system is bound to be loaded, and they got guys that can just call up at any point in time, guys you've never heard of that are going to make big names, and that's a great place to make a big name is out in L.A. Another name that I would like to bring up would be Noah Syndergaard to the Angels. Now, the Angels, in my opinion, one of the biggest letdowns of teams that should be really good but haven't been, producing well enough. I mean, they have one of the greatest players of all time on their team in Mike Trout. Shohei Ohtani is on another level. We've never seen anything like him before. But Syndergaard is a guy that can come in and, he's a 20-game winner probably right out of the gate in terms of pitching. But Syndergaard's a big ad for the Angels there. Also, Adam Frazier to the Mariners. We already talked about the Mariners with the Reds trade. And I know Dave's got some Mariners updates that he likes about them. I think the Mariners are a big winner right now in terms of trades and free agency. They're making some moves that I think is going to help them. And that's an organization that has been kind of waiting for a long time for something to happen. And in the baseball, money talks, and you got to pay these guys. And the Mariners really haven't done that in the past, kind of like the Reds. We don't like to pay a lot to get our players. But the Mariners are making some moves right now, and it's kind of good to see. Anybody else that you got?
Yeah, I think these were both in the fall before the lockout. But, not to forget them, we, just talked about the Los Angeles Dodgers, Corey Seager and Marcus Semien going to the Rangers. Those were 2 big splashes where the Rangers are in that division with the Astros, the Mariners, the A's. I mean, that's a loaded division, Angels as well. And they just went out there and got their middle infield, and they locked them down. I think both were multi-year deals. So I think those were 2 big splashes. And it also, a guy who doesn't like watching the Dodgers go get everybody, it was nice seeing their all-star leave.
Yeah. Yeah, Dave brings up a good point with multi-year contracts. The MLB blows my mind in contract length. One of the key points the players had during their negotiations, with the lockout, was that the average retirement age is like 25. Bryce Harper is signed through 41 years old right now, 13-year contract. Miguel Cabrera is still getting $30 million a year off the contract he signed, 5-6 years ago?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Freeman just got a 6-year deal. He's 32. Like, the length of contracts in the MLB is insane. You're constantly seeing guys every offseason getting 10-plus year deals.
And that's not even
it's
not even new. I mean, Joey Votto got a 10-year deal 8 years ago. I mean, it's not a new thing either.
I said it on the lockout show. I think it's contract structure is a huge issue, and that's one of them, because you're getting these guys towards the end of their career just eating all your salary cap. It's insane to me that they're locking players up for so long.
And I think a great example of that is Max Scherzer, who just signed with the Mets. He signed before the lockout as well. He's 39. He signed a 3-year deal. I mean, I'm not going to put it behind Max Scherzer to go perform when he's 42, but I mean, it's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, a couple other names to throw around there would be Josh Donaldson to the Yankees. Donaldson, he's a big bat, but he's also a veteran with the Yankees. may have a lot of guys that are on the younger end or, early on in their careers. They do have Stanton and they do have Aaron Judge, but a lot of the other guys are really young, and having a guy like Donaldson there would help them out a lot in terms of just being a clubhouse guy.
Well, we can't forget who was the biggest trash talker whenever they were locking down on the pitchers using substances. Josh Donaldson. Who is the biggest opposing voice in that? Garrett Cole, who are now teammates. I love to see it.
Yep. That's definitely something to look out for. I love watching hitters and how they react to pitchers. Right now in the game of baseball, pitchers definitely have the advantage because, every guy you throw on the mound, hardly anybody throws it under 95 consistently. The game is transformed into this big, huge numbers, all these analytics and things like that. It's all about the numbers. But, I love when hitters are making splashes and calling out pitchers. And, like, the drama is really cool. It makes baseball interesting. And, like, it's kind of like back in the steroid era where baseball was kind of like king at that point in time. Like, people loved watching 525-foot home runs from Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa and all those guys. Barry Bonds hitting them into the river. But, like, those are things that make baseball interesting. And I think the little drama back and forth in terms of pitchers and hitters, pitchers versus hitters, home run pimp jobs, throwing the sword when you strike somebody out with a slider. I love that kind of thing. And I think these younger players are kind of, driving that bus a little bit, but it does make baseball a lot interesting on TV anyway. And that's kind of where we're at. Nobody's watching baseball anymore. But maybe if you can get some things going on in terms of more entertainment value, I think that's a plus. A couple other names that we can talk about are Jock Peterson. Just won a championship with the Braves. Big part in that. Super swaggy guy. Big middle of the order hitter going to the Giants over there in California. Nelson Cruz, also a career DH pretty much. Very, very old. I think he's in his 40s already, but still producing. I think he had over 40 home runs last year, if I'm not mistaken. The guy can play ball, and he's there to hit. Universal DH all across the league now. That's going to be his role, and I think it's going to be a big one for him. One guy that me and Dave talked about before we come on was JT Riddle, former Kentucky high school baseball player and UK Wildcat, headed to the Cincinnati Reds. That's a pretty cool little, David called it a sprinkle on top of not being able to, participate in all the fun things that are going on with free agency, because the Reds, every time you make a move, you're like, really? But that is pretty cool to see a Kentucky kid on the Reds, and he's been in the league for a few years now, mainly with the Marlins. I'm not sure who he was with last year, but he got caught up to the Marlins, and he played a few years in middle infield for them. But anybody else that you guys would like to talk about?
Not a free agent signing, and you guys may have more on the Yankees, but I want to talk about the Yankees and the COVID mandate.
Yeah.
So as of right now, any unvaccinated player cannot play in the city of New York or in Toronto. Aaron Judge pretty much said, as plainly as he could, I am unvaccinated. He didn't answer the question.
Did he Aaron Rodgers it, or did he just say I'm unvaccinated?
No, he said, I'm focused on our team and going forward, and I'll address that when I come to it. Like, just shut down the question 100%. That's 96 games that you don't have at least Aaron Judge. And you don't know about the vaccination status, the other players on that team. That's huge. That's the season for the Yankees if they're out him and maybe two or three other guys for over half of their games this year. I just want to get your thoughts on that. I mean, that blew my mind that he pretty much blatantly said, I'm unvaccinated and I'm not worried about it.
What I don't understand is baseball is a game that's played outside. And I understand that you are in the clubhouse and you have meetings and things like that with your teammates, but if nobody else is having that issue around the whole country, why is it an issue in one city in the whole entire United States? I don't understand that. Even playing inside at the Barclays Center or anywhere else, Madison Square Garden, I can understand where you would need to be vaccinated in terms of, participating in those kinds of athletic events. But you're outside. Like, you don't even have contact with the fans. It's not even that. You're away from everyone, and you're there alone by yourself. You're not guarding anybody. You're not posting up anybody. You're not, sweating on each other. You're literally in the outfield. You're, almost 150 feet apart from anybody. So, I mean,
yeah. From my understanding, they have it for the city, so it applies to the stadium, like fans. Yeah. And they can't make exclusions for the players, is the way they said it, even though, like you said, dugouts are open air, seats are open air. But we've seen the same thing with Kyrie all season in the NBA. Well, he's only playing away games right now.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to touch on is the Kyrie situation, because you went and saw he was sitting there courtside for Duke when they're playing an MSG in the ACC tournament, and then he goes into the locker room or something after the game, and he gets hit with like $100,000 fine. So is MSG? I mean, I don't know anything about New York. So like, if can Aaron Judge go be a fan at a Yankees game, he just can't step between the field. I don't know. I think it's so political these days, and I think it's just terrible. And I think something will change really quick. I think, especially with the playoffs and how much money the Nets stand to make for them making it further into the playoffs, I feel like those political donations will be pouring in to the people that make those decisions.
Yeah. They're in. I know I'm not trying to hijack the MLB conversation. The Nets are 7th seed right now, so they're set up to play more away games in the playoffs than home.
You think they're doing that think they're doing that on purpose?
I don't think so. I think it's from not having Kyrie, but I don't think the Yankees are in that position without some of their players. They're not making the playoffs if those guys are missing half the year.
Oh, not with every. I mean, and going back to the MLB, which I didn't put it on our list. But the big news of the day is Trevor Story signing with the Red Sox. I mean, that's another team that are just like the Dodgers. They are going to go spend. And, the Rays are always, homegrown talent. And then the Blue Jays went and got a couple guys. The Yankees are, they're fighting for the Orioles for last place in the AL East right now. I mean, on paper, we should say.
The Blue Jays are really young. I mean, you got Vlad Guerrero and Bo Bichette, and they just signed Matt Chapman from the A's recently, and that's a big signing. It's a big bat there. They got a youth movement going up there in Toronto, and I think that baseball is a young man's game right now. I think your veterans are still going, but you're getting more and more young guys in there that are 25 and younger that are making a splash, and you saw that with the Atlanta Braves last year. A lot of their main key pieces, other than Freeman, were young guys, early 20s, something like that. So.
Well,
moving on.
Well, before we move
ahead.
on,
Sorry.
I want to give a shout out to two guys. Danny Winkler, he signed with the Rangers as a free agent. He's a Parkland Cobra. We crossed paths.
Shout out to Cobra.
Oh yeah.
And I got to catch him, a couple bullpens for him during my 2-year stint there when he came back to work out with us. So I think that's awesome. I was really hoping. I know he was linked to the Reds early in this offseason, but want to give him a shout out. And then also my boy Graham Spraker from QU, he got invited to the Blue Jays big league camp this year. So he was in AA all last year. He was the Arizona Fall League Pitcher of the Year, just absolute dominant out of the bullpen for them. And then hoping for big things from him.
You got to rep the
congrats and good luck, guys.
University, baby.
Yeah, so D2 boy doing us proud, throwing fuzz. So we're rooting for him.
It's always cool when you see guys that you played against or played with that to have a lot of success, and it's really cool. It's a really cool talking point to bring it up. I'm glad you brought that up. It's pretty awesome.
I had that in my back pocket.
Hey. All right, so something that we all love to talk about, and we talk about it just about every show, is the NFL. And since the last show, which was last Sunday, around the same time we recorded in this show right now, a lot of things have happened. And mainly we're going to talk about, first of all, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson to the Browns. The Browns gave up a lot of draft picks for him. 3 first-rounders, I believe, and then a couple other, like a 3rd rounder, a 5th rounder, 6, something like that. But 3 first-round draft picks for Deshaun Watson. And then they go and sign Jacoby Brissett, all the while Baker Mayfield is still on the roster. So if you're Baker Mayfield, let's talk about that first. How do you feel? What's going through your mind? What's your next step if you're Baker Mayfield?
I think I got to take this first because I feel like this entire time we have started this show, I have defended Baker, and I said it was Baker's year. They went and got Amari Cooper. He had to do his job, and he gone. He done. I think
he gone.
I think he's done. I mean, clearly that he asked for the trade. He asked for the trade. They said no. Then they went and traded for Deshaun Watson. So it'd actually be pretty hilarious if they just kept on to him. But there's no way they're going to do that.
Make him go through training camp. That'd be awesome.
That would be such a kick in the nuts. But I think he's at this point, he's lucky to go be a backup somewhere. I don't know. I mean, he might go to Seattle. There's not really.
Indianapolis is something that is a team that jumps out to me.
There's just not that many teams that are probably going to go after him, in my opinion. At least not before the draft. So I think he's lucky if he gets on a borderline contender. He had the perfect situation. I'm not sure what made the Browns really pursue Watson. I mean, I think that was kind of a bold choice by them, especially after you already have Kareem Hunt on the roster. You know, Frank's tweet, or Frank told us about the tweet that said the Cleveland girls need to watch out.
I saw a tweet on Twitter. Deshaun Watson and Kareem Hunt on the same team. Them poor girls in Cleveland, but awful situation.
Yeah,
agreed.
So I mean, if I'm Baker, I'm praying to God I go to the Colts. But I think this will be the start where he'll become the journeyman, the number one overall pick journeyman. That just he probably ends up like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, where he'll have 6 to 8 good games a year where he'll get a lot of good buzz, and then he'll have those games where he throws 2-3 picks and he'll sign 1- and 2-year deals and move on to the next situation. So I don't know. I think this is kind of his death kiss, and I don't think we'll ever see him reach his full potential.
He'll probably be a guy that, injuries happen throughout the year and they go get Baker Mayfield to come fill a gap there for a little while. One thing that's quiet, and Coop, you know a lot about this one, is Jameis Winston. Is there any buzz around him right now? I know that nothing's happened, but the Saints have been pursuing other quarterbacks, and he's still there. So I don't understand that.
I think the Saints were waiting on Watson.
Yeah.
They felt like they were a contender there. He was down in the final 2 choices until he changed his mind. Since they don't have him now, I assume they're working on a deal with Winston. I think that's where he ends up, is in New Orleans. I would love to see him go to Seattle. And I think Jameis Winston in Seattle is a playoff team. I really do. Everybody's talking about a rebuild because Russell's gone. That's not a huge gap. From Wilson to Winston, you're talking maybe 5-6 spots if you're ranking quarterbacks out right now. Like, I don't think Russ is top 10 anymore. And we can name them, but he's in that mid-tier, and Jameis is probably the back end of that mid-tier. But they got a good starting defensive lineman in that trade. They got one of the best tight ends in the league. If they go get somebody like that in the NFC that continues to get weaker, I really think the Seahawks could be a playoff team. I don't think Jameis ends up there. Just interesting I think it's interesting to look at, and I feel like they could be a playoff team and not in a rebuild if they got him. Back to Baker. Didn't mean to, sidetrack us there. If I'm Baker right now, I'm thinking I should have kept my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Because if I did, I'm probably still the quarterback for the Browns.
Yeah,
right? He said, I want to trade. Watson says Cleveland's out, and then they guarantee him money. That's what sealed the deal there. We'll guarantee your whole contract, even if you go to prison for sexual assault. You'll still be getting paid from us. That's the first takeaway there. And then I agree with Dave. I don't think anybody wants Baker. I don't think anybody wants to invest in him. He's the same situation as Sam Darnold right now. He's a 4th, 5th-year quarterback on a $20 million contract. Nobody believes in. Nobody's going to give up assets to get that bridge guy that hasn't proven anything. So, yeah, Baker's days as a franchise quarterback are over.
Yeah.
It's kind of disheartening because, number 1 overall pick, I really don't think he's had his chances, obviously, but is the Browns is Deshaun Watson going to be the Browns quarterback that brings all the graveyard quarterbacks back to fruition? Like the shirt with all the quarterback names on the back of it, and like we know how good Deshaun Watson is, so that's just going to prove if the Browns are cursed or not when it comes to quarterbacks. Because if Deshaun Watson comes there and everything is all clear, all good, and he still can't produce as a quarterback now with Amari Cooper there, who knows what Jarvis Landry's more than likely not going to be there. But with those two offensive threats at Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the backfield, with a really good offensive line, who knows what's possible there in Cleveland. And, I just don't know. I really want to see Watson do good. I don't feel sorry for Baker Mayfield at all. He's cocky and doesn't really have a lot to show for it. He's a Heisman Trophy winner at Oklahoma, but he's never been the guy in the NFL that's going to jump out at you and give you anything you ever wanted. But it's pretty interesting to see how things are unfolding there in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And obviously I have a vested interest because I'm a Bengals fan, and now we have everybody and their mother running to the AFC. The Bengals have one good year, and the AFC is like, nah, we're good. You ain't doing that no more. We're going to just get everybody over here.
Well, hell, if the Bengals can get to the Super Bowl, so could we.
For real. That's what I'm saying. Like, the Bengals are making moves, too. We signed a few offensive linemen. Lael Collins signed today from the Cowboys. Huge signing. Huge signing.
Yeah.
And then we got a couple. We got a center and then another guard.
Yeah, that one from the Bucks.
Kappas. Is it Kappas?
Kappa. Yeah, Alex Kappa.
There's the names are similar.
Yeah, like Ted
Karras or Karras.
Like Karras, yes. Two quick things on Baker, though. I think if a team is interested in him, draft Sam Howell.
Yeah.
Very similar play style,
same
very similar intangibles, attitude.
I agree with that.
Everything about them. They even kind of look alike.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in Baker, don't give up the assets. Go get a guy 3 years younger on a rookie deal.
Pay less for him.
And he's fallen, right? He was. I know at the start of the year, he was like first quarterback off the board in the first round, but I think he's down to like second or third round now, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's probably, early second, I think. I don't think he'll be in the first.
I think he was in the top 10 of quarterbacks, but he was like 6 or 7 last time I checked.
Yeah.
In terms of
the
rankings.
Second thing, the optics on this look terrible for Cleveland. To give a guy, we're a football talk show right now, but it's very serious what's going on. And the criminal charges did not get pressed. There's still 22 lawsuits against this guy, and he has the most guaranteed money in NFL history.
Well,
that is bad.
Why?
Terrible.
You know why? He probably needs guaranteed money. He's got 22 ladies. He probably has to pay to hush up. So
probably a whole courtroom full of lawyers too.
Yeah.
I don't know all the legal issues, and I'm not going to even pretend like I know legal talk. Allegations are allegations, and they just don't happen out of the blue for the most part. So there is going to be some sort of punishment there, just like Trevor Bauer. His extended leave of absence has been extended for like another week or two. He did weigh in on Twitter with a lot of backlash after the Watson trade. But they're kind of in similar situations where what they did was, or allegedly did, terrible. Probably, if found guilty, should not ever play get paid to play another sport ever again. But the legal system and justice system is there for a reason. Things happen. We'll just see how it plays out and then move on from there. I wish everybody in the situation the best of luck.
Yeah, on that Trevor Bauer, I did see where the LA DA wasn't going to press charges, and they actually, the girl filed for a restraining order, and they denied that. So he's really? It's now his leave of absence is purely the MLB. So
just kind of, I would assume that's them making it seem like they actually care about it.
Yeah, that's what happened to Roethlisberger. There were allegations, no charges, 6 games. So I would expect to see, if everything is settled with Watson and no guilt or anything comes out, then he's still looking at probably, I would think, in that 6 to 8 game range, about half a season.
So wild thought here. Do you think the Browns say, "Hey Baker, you got 6 games to prove your worth"?
I could see that.
What? That's great television. ESPN would have a field day with that, and quite frankly, so would we.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Like go.
I mean, that's why they signed Brissett if nobody takes Baker.
Well, yeah.
But if they don't, hold on to him. Let him say you got 60 games to get your value up, or we're cutting you.
I mean, yeah,
and Jacoby Brissett is no scrub of a quarterback either.
Yeah.
No, he's definitely capable of being a starter, and he's proven that in both Miami and Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So
Indianapolis should have kept him.
I agree. They could use him right now.
You know what would be wild? Just came to mind here. What if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go after him? Tell him, hey, you're going to sit behind Tom Brady for this year, maybe next, or whenever he decides to retire, and you're going to learn from the greatest to ever do it. Because, I mean, I don't know if Kyle Trask is the guy who's going to replace Brady, but
I really don't. Yeah, that's not happening.
I mean, just a thought. It just occurred to me. Thought I'd mention.
I like it. Hot take.
Hey, that'd be pretty awesome. Again, ESPN would have a field day with that. That's definitely a big splash, and that would give a lot of attention to whoever team would sign him. If you want that attention, some teams don't. They like to fly under the radar. But one of the biggest attention grabbers this week was Devante Adams going to the Raiders. Thoughts?
Yeah. This is a big one.
I'm still floored. I don't know what happened.
He didn't want to play. They franchise tagged him immediately after Aaron Rodgers announced that he was coming back. And at that point, Rodgers' deal wasn't even completed. Like, the numbers weren't worked out officially. There were some numbers being thrown around, but even then, it ended up being different from what was actually happening. And then we saw all the fallout from the Rodgers trade, with Carson Wentz and a couple other quarterbacks, Russell Wilson going to their teams. Obviously, everybody's going after Aaron Rodgers, but it didn't happen. And then they slapped the franchise tag on Adams. And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm not playing under a franchise tag. Y'all can suck it. And then all of a sudden here we are, like, a week later, and he's signing with the Raiders. Josh McDaniel, pretty big signing there. That immediately makes your team really good. They lost one of their big receivers last year with who was it? It's not Judy, but it's the other one. What's his name?
Henry Ruggs.
Henry Ruggs, yeah. Henry Ruggs. Haven't even heard an update on him. I don't know how he's doing. How long is he in prison? I'm assuming.
Yeah, he's gonna be in prison for a long time.
Probably will be for. Yes.
Yeah, that's super unfortunate. Terrible mistake on his part. Let's stop for a minute. When we talk about big mistakes being made, why is it always football players? You don't really hear a lot of. I mean, you hear Trevor Bauer, but right now, like in the news, the grand scheme of things, it's always NFL football players. Why is that?
I will
CTE.
Yeah, I will tell you what our coaches used to tell us in college. Boys, when you go out to the bars, don't mess with football players. They hit for fun, and Coop said it. CTE. You bang heads hard enough, or you bang heads long enough at practice. Football players are just aggressive in general. I mean, you have to be, and I think that's kind of the.
And I mean,
go ahead.
Henry Ruggs was 22 years old. I don't think CTE was impacting that decision.
I think it was that he was 22 years old.
That's probably a lot of the issue. You give a 22-year-old that much money, and mistakes are going to be made. But the NFL tries to do a lot of things to put that financial, education in place. The issue is it's a violent game. I mean, watch a good football movie. What do we talk about? Varsity Blues.
Yep.
You got a high school quarterback getting shot up at halftime because he's in pain. Any given Sunday, it is full of guys just suffering, talking about the drugs they're taking, the shots they need. Every football movie you look at has that, and it's a reality. Football, it's pain, and when that's your career, that's your job, your body breaks down. You are in pain, and it a lot of times leads to the use of substances to relieve that. And the NFL tries to govern it. I do think it's the worst ran league in professional sports. I'm the biggest fan of it. I watch it more than any other. You know, they get my money more than the other leagues do, but they are very poorly ran. Just everything, optics, the way they govern players, I think it's all bad. But that's why you see that these guys are violent by trade. I mean, honestly, they're getting paid millions of dollars to go out there and be physical on a daily basis. And sometimes it's hard to separate, you know, in any profession, work from your personal life. And they mesh. And I think that's why you're seeing so much of that.
Sorry, I had to ask that question because when you think about things and, you know, big scandals and things in the news, it's always football players in the NFL. But anyway, back to the topic we were talking about. Devante Adams with the Raiders. Derek Carr as a quarterback, maybe. We're not really 100% sure about it.
I would think that submits them because they were college teammates at Fresno State.
Yep.
Fresno State.
Pretty cool connection there. New Josh McDaniels, new head coach, very offensive minded, of course. They do get a huge weapon. They already have Darren Waller. They already got a pretty good running back.
Did you all see
and Hunter Renfrow?
Did you all see the Packers offered him the same deal? Did you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I did.
He wanted to play elsewhere.
So
my take on that is Aaron Rodgers is the closest personality to Jerry Jones in the football world. It's Jerry's world. It's Aaron's world, right? He was going to leave the Packers because he wasn't involved enough in decisions. And he's had a soap opera for 2 years in Green Bay. So I think what they released is true. Adams didn't care if he could get paid the same. He wanted to go somewhere else. He's the best receiver in football, and he's tired of being a supporting cast member on Green Bay Days of Our Lives.
He probably also wants to play somewhere pretty warm. And Vegas is pretty warm.
No income tax in California. It blows my mind that that's never a bigger discussion in these contract negotiations.
Well, Las Vegas
don't have
10%
income tax.
Nevada, Coop.
I apologize. Still no income tax. Tourist state.
I
was thinking LA.
I make that mistake all the time. I put them in LA all the time. But yeah, it's real cold. If you're what do the Packers do? I mean, who are they going to throw the ball to?
OBJ, Julio Jones, Will Fuller,
Landry would be a good fit there.
They have to go after a big name because, you know, they still have Randall Cobb. They got Lazard, Valdez Scantling. Guys that aren't going to just jump out on the paper at you in terms of number one wide receivers. You know, Cobb is really good. He's at the end of his career, though.
They missed out on a great value. Robert Woods for a 6th-round pick to the Titans.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That was a miss by Green Bay.
Bobby Trees is definitely a top-tier receiver.
Yeah.
Especially for a guy like Ryan Tannehill. And then you know, I guess is that why the Titans released Julio Jones? Is to, you know, fill that cap space and maybe go after somebody different?
No, I think on that, I think him and AJ Brown they're kind of both the same guy, you know, big physical receivers. They can play wherever on the field. And I think AJ Brown was just electric. I know I had him in fantasy 2 years ago, and he was amazing for me. And I know he dealt with some early injuries this year, but whenever he came back in that second half of this season, I mean, him and Devante Adams were 1 and 2. I mean, it felt like every time AJ Brown touched the ball, he was taking it to the house or at least getting 20 yards. So I think that was just this is AJ's team, not Julio's. So hand him the keys.
Yeah, and they both had injury problems. So I think it was just finding somebody more consistent to play alongside him, which Woods may not be a good choice coming off an ACL tear, but prior to that, he was just really healthy throughout his career.
Yeah, for sure. Another big name going, you know, the rich get richer, Juju Smith-Schuster to the Chiefs. The Chiefs are loaded at wide receiver. I don't really understand this unless, you know, they got Ty Hill, they got Kelsey, they got what's the other guy's name that
Mecole Hardman.
Mecole Hardman, yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Hardman, and then you also got Josh Gordon still there too. And then all of a sudden you go out and sign Juju, who has been quite a disappointment in the last couple of years with injuries. But Juju's a really, really good wide receiver. And you put him with a guy, a really good quarterback that can actually get him the ball. that makes the Chiefs a lot better if he can find his way onto the field.
I think we kind of already hit on this. Patrick Mahomes, where he signed for potentially up to $500 million. And then Devante Adams just goes and signs a record-breaking wide receiver deal. What do you think Tyreek Hill's going to ask for? I look at this as a security blanket signing to where, hey, Tyreek might walk, but it's okay if he does because Juju is a known commodity. We know he can be a Pro Bowler. So,
yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. I think I kind of agree with you. I don't understand it. He doesn't give you anything dynamic, right? He's a possession receiver. Maybe they're trying to cut down on Kelsey's usage a little bit and extend his career. I don't know. I mean, I get what Dave's saying. Hill's going to want to get paid big time. I mean, $30 million a year for a receiver is going to kill this market as we go forward.
Yep.
Especially when they're so readily available. Like you see new guys every year putting up crazy numbers. Good for the Chiefs, I guess. The AFC West just keeps getting better, but I don't think he's going to come in and have 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns or anything like that. I mean, he's at best option 3 on this team.
Yeah, there's not enough balls to go around there, I don't think.
No.
A couple more guys to throw out there. We're going to talk about the Jags here in a minute. The Jags are making some moves. We talked before we came on the air that, we kind of think they're fake moves, trying to get Trevor Lawrence some better weapons to maybe prove that he's not a bust of a quarterback. I do think Christian Kirk is a really good receiver. He's proven that in Arizona, maybe with a little bigger of a role. He could, expand on his talents and showcase that a little bit better. Evan Ingram as a tight end, a mediocre guy, but he's also a veteran. He's been with a couple of different teams now, and he kind of knows how the NFL works. He could be a mentor to some of these other younger players that the Jags have. The Jags have they're the Jags. New coach. You never know what can happen. Things change daily every single year when it comes to these organizations. The Jags are also at the bottom of the list in terms of talent, and they're a newer NFL team, and it takes a while to gain some traction. But it looks as though from the outside looking in, if you don't know a ton about football, you see them making moves, getting names that you actually know. Like a lot, you could probably ask, a regular everyday football fan that watches it on the weekends probably wouldn't be able to name a lot of Jaguars receivers. But it seems to me like they're making some moves here and there that are going to make them better. They might go from 2 wins to 5, maybe. That's the kind of moves they're making. They're not making a huge jump, but what do you guys think?
I don't think the division's that good, and I think it's about quantity, not quality for the Jags. They're bringing in veterans on deals that are overpriced. I guess they're just trying to secure starters for their team, is my assumption in overpaying. Kirk's good. He's not worth that contract he got. And he's a big reason that Adams got $28 million. They got some decent pieces on defense. Olaquin led the NFL in tackles last year, but he was on a Atlanta Falcons team that played defense, 90% of the time because they were terrible. Like when you have that many opportunities, you're going to get a lot of tackles.
But then they released Miles Jack, though.
Yeah, so they
did.
had to.
Yeah,
they couldn't pay him.
Yeah,
it was good. I mean,
very good.
I agree.
You would think if you would want to shore up a defense, you would talk to that guy. You wouldn't just release him, or at least you could trade him and get some out of him.
Yeah, I feel like we're seeing a lot of big names released instead of traded, and
That's
it's
out of the
just
ordinary.
Urgency of time. They want it to happen quick. If they don't have a trade offer in 1 or 2 days, we saw it with Lyle Collins, right?
Yeah.
He's available for trade. 2 days later, he's cut. Jarvis Landry, available for trade. 2 days later, he's cut. Like teams just aren't waiting on those deals. They want to free up that cap and get into the market. But what I was saying about the Jags, quantity over quality, they're just trying to put a team out there with options. A couple of injuries happen. They're not really getting huge downgrades because they don't have any stars, trying to get lucky. And I think they're, hoping they can, like you said, double that win column from last year.
Yeah, I don't think a wide receiver core of Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones Jr., and Evan Ingram. I mean, you're going to beat the Texans, probably, depending if they make some splashes. Who knows what the Colts are going to be like, depending on what quarterback they go and get. And, the Titans are going to be good. Derrick Henry's going to come back healthy. So, I would say, the AFC is just loaded. You're looking at probably the AFC, North and West. They're fighting for 3 teams to make it into the playoffs each. So I don't understand why. Christian Kirk is good, but he benefits from D-Hop and AJ Brown or AJ. AJ Brown, not AJ Brown. AJ Green. All those colors, getting all confused. But I think they're fake moves. I think they're pretending. They're saying, "Oh, we went and got our guy," some legit receivers. Evan Ingram had some good years with the Giants, but he has a lot of injuries. He was never on the field healthy. So I think Trevor Lawrence still is a sadly, that's the number 1 draft pick. That's what you get. You get the worst team. Yeah. So unfortunate for him.
Yeah, he's still got a lot to prove.
Offensive line did get a lot better for the Jaguars. They franchise tagged Cam Robinson, and didn't they get Washington's guard, Shreff?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
he went there. They've still got that top pick, so offensive line's looking a lot better. But what are you going to do behind them?
Yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence definitely has a talent. He just needs some pieces there, and maybe a coaching change helps that as well. Maybe a different strategy and different game plan day in and day out. It may match his talent and his abilities better. This is going to be a pretty telling year for the Jags, considering that they have put in so much time with Trevor Lawrence and put all their eggs in that basket. But moving on to another quarterback move, and probably I would say very, very underwhelming, would be Mitchell Trubisky to the Steelers. I think Mitchell Trubisky is kind of in the same boat as Baker Mayfield. He's very mediocre. He's not going to be the guy that moves the Steelers in the direction they want to go. I feel like this is sort of a placeholder for them. I don't see him being like a full-time starter all the time. I just think they might be having their eye on somebody else later down the line, and then trying to just fill a gap there. I don't think it's not Mason Rudolph. That's for damn sure.
Don't disrespect the first ever MVP, man. Nickelodeon player or whatever. I don't know, but I think I went to Indianapolis this weekend to go watch some basketball. Stayed with my uncle, big Steelers guy, and he was like Frank. He thought the Trubisky signing was just meh. I think a lot of people forget Mitchell Trubisky was a double doink away from the Super Bowl with the Chicago Bears. Granted, I'll give you the argument, their defense was stacked that year, and they were very good defensively, and he just had to score some touchdowns.
Pittsburgh.
But I'm saying,
Coop's got a point.
Yeah, he had a terrible offensive coach. Him and Allen Robinson were like one of the top combinations in the league. You might not be starting Mitchell Trubisky in your fantasy league, but you're damn right, Allen Robinson's at least a wide receiver too. So I think a lot of people sleep on Mitchell Trubisky because he dealt with some bad coaching, and his last couple years in Chicago were bad. He sat behind Josh Allen last year, and I think this is the nicest compliment I'll ever give Mitchell Trubisky, but he is a poor man's Josh Allen. He likes to run first. He has a decent arm, and he can win. He's proven that he can win in the NFL. So I think it's a good signing by the Steelers. You don't get a big name. You don't go and spend a lot of money, but you're going to get production. And last I checked, he's probably going to produce more than Big Ben did.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Coop made a good point about the defense too.
Yeah. The Steelers is the best situation you can be in this quarterback market. Right? Indianapolis is a close second. But I think that's the place you want to be. You want to be with that coaching staff. You want to be with that defense. Najee Harris can do everything. dude, volume-wise, was insane last year. I don't think the efficiency was up there with Jonathan Taylor, but they're 1-2 right now in my book in the league. I mean, 3 down backs don't come off the field. They can do it all. The weapons in the passing game, they've lost a little this year. You know, Juju's gone. Ray McLeod's gone. They still have Deontay Johnson. But I'm with you. I think he's a very coachable kid. Kid? He's probably our age. What I'm talking about. But
well, I'm still a kid.
You know what I mean?
I still act like a kid.
Yeah. But I think he's got a lot of those intangibles you said. I don't think his arm's quite as big as Josh Allen. Obviously not as physical. But, yeah, the comp's there. So I think definitely in the hunt for a playoff spot in that division that's going to be extremely competitive.
I dread football season because every week is going to matter. And I'm not used to that as a Bengals fan. I'm used to like, hey, we're going to win today. Not as like, hey, we got to win today, and then next week, and then 2 weeks after that. Because now it's the murderer's row of teams. And with the Deshaun Watson coming in for the Browns that have beaten us 4 times in a row, and obviously the Ravens, Lamar Jackson is a magician, and you know Mark Andrews over there is one of the best tight ends in the league, one of the best players in the league. Period. We got an uphill battle, even though we're coming off of a Super Bowl appearance. We are making upgrades to our offensive line. We just signed Hayden Hurst as well. I hated to see Uzama go, but Hayden Hurst is a better tight end than Uzama is. I just think that we're making moves to get better, and I don't know if our moves to get better are going to outweigh the moves of, let's say, the Browns, who are trying to get better as well. But that's why they play the game. And NFL is a long season, man. A lot of things happen in terms of from the beginning to the end. Injuries happen, suspensions. You never know. But it's going to be one of the more interesting football seasons in my recollection that I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's still some huge names on the market. I know we've got more to touch on, more players. One of the funniest signings to me, or I think it's going to be difficult, one of you all highlighted it pre-show, Randy Gregory to the Broncos. Let's send a guy with 2 separate drug suspensions to the city where recreational drug use is legal. That sounds like a great idea. I will be amazed if he stays out of trouble. I wish him the best. I think he's a talented player. They have the worst pass rush in that division, and that's insane to say when it's him and Bradley Chubb. But
all right, can we just talk about
that one stood out?
He just I need to choose my words here. I got in trouble for saying on our last show. Mom wasn't too happy with me saying the P word, but how he just completely. He signed with he verbally agreed with the Cowboys, and then he goes and signs the same deal with the Broncos. I mean,
he said, "I'm out."
Yeah.
I'm out.
So listen, I looked into that a lot, and there was a clause in there that the only person on the Cowboys that had received a contract since Dak Prescott that didn't have that clause was Dak Prescott. And everybody else was subject to, in some way, not get their guaranteed money if something happened, other than Dak. So that was the difference. That's why he went to Denver, because they put that in the fine print in his contract, even though it was the same amount of money. He was like, F that. Why does he not have to follow the rule and everybody else does? So Schefter did a good job breaking that down on ESPN. I watched the special, and he was talking about it.
So you're telling me Jerry strikes again?
Yeah, it's Jerry's world, man. I'm telling you. And Aaron Rodgers is a close second, and Dan Snyder's doing everything he can to get in the conversation. That's my 1, 2, 3 of NFL drama right now.
Nailed it.
I feel like we've got to bring Jerry Jones up every single show that we do, because we're just shitting on the guy now.
I mean, he's a lightning bolt.
Baker's not worth the airtime we've gave him.
No, he's not. He's fun to
I
talk
told you
about.
guys weeks ago.
You're right about that.
Baker was not worth starting, and we talked about
I think
him
this
more
is
than
like the
anybody.
3rd or 4th show we've talked about him.
It's just, I mean, it is what it is.
I got to stop defending the guy.
Let's get another shout out to Colt McCoy real quick, signing an extension.
Oh, yeah, that's my boy.
All right, guys. Anybody else you'd like to hit on before we move on to the NCAA Basketball Tournament?
Just one guy, Raheem Mostert to the Dolphins. He was a stud with the Niners, but I think that just shows you the 49ers are all in on I'm blanking on his name right now, but the rookie.
Mike McDaniels.
No, the 49ers are all in on
Elijah Mitchell.
Thank you. Yeah.
Running back.
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah.
I should have known that. He's on our fantasy team.
Yeah. So I think that's
It's a waiver wire pickup.
I think that's a good pickup by the Dolphins. But I think it's even actions speak louder than words, or no action by the 49ers speak louder, saying, hey, he's good, but this kid we got that's going to be in the second year is better. So I think that's a very interesting signing by him. So
yeah, my biggest takeaway is talking about all these stars in the AFC West and how they're going to affect the way they all play. Right? We're talking about 4 of the top 12 to 13 quarterbacks in the league. That's where I have Russ and Derek Carr. They're on that back end for me. But they're not going to put up those numbers this year. Devante Adams is not putting up Devante Adams numbers. I mean, the defenses they're going to have to face, the games that are going to be played, they're not going to look like the talent they have in these other places, but we know that's the talent they are, right? But I think it's going to be awesome to watch, but I don't see Adams being a top 10 wide receiver this season, stat-wise.
Not when you got 8 games or whatever, how many games against the AFC West and all those defensive fronts. It's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. And the pass rush these quarterbacks are going to see, Mahomes and Justin Herbert, in my mind, no doubt are top 5 in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yep.
They're not putting up top 5 numbers this year with those defenses. I mean, there's too many games against too many good pass rushers. It's going to be awesome to see that impact.
That's a good point to bring up because, here in the next couple of months, we'll be doing like fantasy football preview shows and things like that. So you guys keep a lookout for that. But we're going to be the ones to kind of break that down for you in terms of new guys, new places, maybe the guys that you might have drafted first overall, top 5 pick, first round even, may need to think twice at this point for a lot of guys. So that's pretty big. And a lot of people, you may not understand kind of where things are coming from or how the situations play out based on schedules. Because I know for me, this is probably why I suck at fantasy football, but I don't look at schedules in terms of what the schedule looks like for whoever I'm drafting and things like that. I barely look at bye weeks, but
that's why Coop destroys us, man.
I got 4 guys on a bye. It's just one game. That's the way I look at it. It's 1 week.
I mean, the target share and cornerback wide receiver matchups and all that. I get into the weeds.
Yeah, I don't have time for that. Here's my $30. That's what I do.
Yeah.
All right, so a lot of NFL talk, and I'm sure we're going to hit on it again next week. Some things are going to happen this week that are going to pique our interest. But the biggest thing going on right now is obviously the NCAA tournament, and we've already hit on that, or I did anyway, at the beginning of the show. The St. Peter's Peacocks are in the Sweet 16. Going to play the winner of Texas and Purdue, if I'm not mistaken, who may be playing right now. I'm not sure.
I think they just tipped.
Dave, did you see got that game on behind you?
Yeah, they just tipped. Texas, Purdue.
Dave, what game? Oh, is that what?
Yeah.
Did Wisconsin win or Iowa State?
Iowa State pulled off the win, 54-49, and Texas Tech right now is up 59-52 over Notre Dame with 15 seconds left.
Okay, so I mean, this tournament's been wild and crazy. Obviously, before we get started with our reactions as to what's happening, I want to give a shout out, and yes, you heard it right, a shout out to Penny Hardaway. I feel like he has become. I don't like him. I think I'll put it that way. That he has done a decent job turning his team around this year. Ever since I've talked crap about him, his team has played tremendously. They won a game in the NCAA tournament, gave Gonzaga all they wanted last night. Unfortunately, his strategy for his big men, and we talked about this in our text messages, he did not have an answer for Drew Timme in the second half. And quite frankly, not a lot of people do. But when the dude has 4 points in the first half, ends up with 28 or something crazy, something like that. He dominated you in the second half. Dominated you. He was out with most of his bigs with 3 or 4 fouls most of the second half, which hurt them a lot. They had a pretty good sized lead. They just lost it. And that's what young teams do. But I will give him a shout out, although he could care less. He don't know who I am. But a lot of other Memphis fans out there that might listen to us, or people that like Penny Hardaway or like the Memphis Tigers, this is my apology to him. I'm glad he won his first NCAA tournament. I do think he's, deserving of his job again next year. I will say that. He's a great recruiter, and I think once he gets it figured out and gets the coaching thing figured out, he's got Larry Brown on the bench, a Hall of Famer. He's going to learn something. He's surrounded himself with good people, good coaches. He's trying to get better, and I will give him a shout-out for that and commend him for his efforts. I think if his coaching style is going to catch up with his recruiting, watch out for Memphis. That's all I got to say. So what are some of y'all's biggest takeaways so far from the NCAA tournament?
So I just want to
talk about Drew Timmy.
Oh, let me go first.
Quick, since Frank already brought him up.
Hold on.
Okay, go ahead. You got it.
I just want to apologize to anybody that listened to our advice last week. We are not experts, and
we definitely shit the bed.
And it is bad. Looking at our bracket, I'm sorry. This is. Please tune in next week or next year. We'll be better.
Hey, we hit a couple, right? Villanova's still in it. That was my pick.
North Carolina. Austin picked North Carolina. That was a good pick. Austin.
Great call by
Great job.
him.
Well, you go on about Drew Timmy, and then
we did miss on
we'll
some,
go back to
but,
the score brackets. You talk about Drew Timmy for a second.
Yeah, so we talked about this offline too, but I had to bring it up. Drew Timmy is the Nikola Jokic of college basketball.
He can do
Somehow, he continues to go out there and be an All-American, put up numbers, and you watch the game and you don't understand it. You're like, how did that kid get on the court? What's he doing out there?
He looks like he belongs at the Stanton City Park on Tuesday afternoons, running with the high school kids.
He can't. I would love to see his combine numbers because they would be absolutely terrible.
They'd probably be similar to yours, Coop.
You know what? I feel like everything except maybe vertical, but I don't know how he does what he does, but he's doing it. It's amazing to watch. I say the same thing when I'm watching Jokic. It looks like everybody else is in slow motion because he's so slow, and they're just constantly making plays. Those are two of the most impressive players in the world to me.
Yeah.
He made a play last night where he was running down the court in the second half in a close game, was running down the lane. The ball was coming up behind him. He turns around, catches a probably 30-foot pass right here underneath the basket, turns and lays it up backwards.
And does all of it as unathletically as you possibly can.
And the most unnecessary headband in all of sports. And one of the greatest mustaches of all time.
Oh,
yeah.
Did you all watch his post-game interview?
No.
Yeah.
He tried so hard not to cuss. It was so funny. He was just sitting there, and you could hear him pause. And he was like, okay, I got to say this. And then it was so funny.
He even dropped in.
He's definitely somebody I could be friends with.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to go
into
breaking. I'm doing some stats on our bracket though. I do want to give a shout out to Austin. Our special guest last week. He dominated us for our first round games. He went 6-2. Frank, you came in second at 5-3. I came home in third at 4-4. And Coop, you came in at a lousy 3-5. Thanks for that, South Dakota State. Man, you ruined all my brackets. But
I really thought they had a shot.
But as of
that's a good pick, though.
Oh yeah, I mean they had a chance. It was a close game. I mean they only lost 66-57. So I mean I didn't watch it, but I'm sure a lot of that was just free throws. But going into this second round, which is finishing up tonight. Right now I'm 2-2, but I still have my Elite Eight intact. Frank, you're 2-2, and you picked Tennessee to win the South. They gone. So you got Houston left.
Yeah.
But you went 2-2. You still got Houston, Villanova, but you need Houston to win, buddy. And then Coop, you got the Auburn game.
Go Cougs.
Right now, but you are sitting at 0-3 currently. And Monet, Monet picked it, boys. He picked UNC over Baylor. I texted Coop this. I don't know what happened on that fateful night in Durham, but the Tar Heels, they flipped a switch.
It lit a fire underneath him. Hubert Davis is on cloud nine. I watched that game, and everything was going wrong there at the end for North Carolina. Manic got the flagrant 2, which I did not agree with, and I don't want to see North Carolina win an NCAA tournament game. I don't want to see Kansas. I don't want to see Duke. I don't want to see UCLA. But like, part of me was like, come on, dude. Like, that's bad. Like, I don't think it was a flagrant 2. He had an elbow on a block out, and they threw him out of the game. He was on fire, had 26 points, and with probably like 11 or 12 minutes left in the game.
Yep.
The dude can play ball. Baycott was battling back and forth with old dude with the short blonde hair from Baylor, who, in my opinion, probably one of the biggest babies of all of college basketball. I don't even know his name. I don't care what his name is, but he was flopping around the court looking like a fish out of water, trying to draw fouls on anybody and everybody. And Baycott was, having a hard time with that. And he kept his, composure. Could have done a lot of things there to get him in trouble. So credit to that guy. Big reason why they won that game. Could have put it away there at the end with some free throws that he missed, but the guy helped them win that game. And then their guard play is just unreal. So right now, I'm going to say that I like North Carolina to keep the train rolling. I really do.
So let me talk about my Tar Heels for a second. What happened in that, they played the best 70 minutes of basketball of anybody in this tournament. Through 70 minutes, they were the best team in the NCAA tournament, and then they got exposed.
Yep.
There's 2 things they struggle with. If Love or Davis is not shooting well, they're terrible on the court. Their defense falls off. You saw Caleb Love foul out with 5 points. He wasn't shooting well, so he wasn't playing well. It causes turnovers. They get in foul trouble. Davis, luckily, was hitting 30 points, stayed in the game, saved them. I mean, his performance in overtime is why they won. Second thing, they have no depth, nothing. They had 4 post players transfer out. A couple of them we saw in the tournament. Walker Kessler, Brandon Huffman down at Jacksonville State. Garrison Brooks started for Mississippi State all year long, and then they lost Daron Sharp to the NBA draft. All 4 of them gone in 1 year. This year, Dawson Garcia leaves the team for medical reasons. Like, they are so depleted inside. Baycott is all they have. So when Manic got thrown out, they didn't have anybody else to play. Those guys don't have experience. Davis has not subbed a lot this year because he couldn't. And that's a recipe for disaster going forward, because now teams know we be physical. We can play physical with you, get you in foul trouble, and it's ours. So I hope they can pull it together. I hope Love steps up and plays a little better in the next game. But those are the 2 things that will keep them from winning going forward.
Yeah. Any other surprises? Obviously, St. Peter's. They come out and beat Murray State, who everybody thought was the team that was going to upset Kentucky, and that was a popular pick. And they've lost 3 games all year. They're a very talented team, and they owned them.
Yeah, I would like
the entire game.
I was there. I was at the game. I am the Kentucky fan that bought tickets that ended up going to the game because the resale value wasn't worth it. But I will say this honestly: if you put any other jersey on those kids, you wouldn't blink an eye at how they play and how good they are. I was scrolling through Twitter between the Tennessee game and the St. Peter's game, and I stumbled on one that said, longest active winning streaks in the NCAA. Murray State was number 1 at the time with 21. St. Peter's was second with 8, I believe, which, I think they are the best kept secret, and the way they play basketball is incredible. What Shaheem Holloway has those kids believing is incredible.
Yep.
I mean, if any one of those boys hits the floor, you have 12 guys. Like, they have to keep the guys on the bench so they don't go pick up the guys. And the way they run their screen action is unstoppable. I mean, Kentucky was not a bad defensive team. Yeah, we had stretches where we sucked. But whenever Oscar Tshiebwe who is the fastest guy on Kentucky's team per stats, whatever most combines they run, and they were getting wide open layups off their screens they were running, and then they'd go and do the same thing to Murray State. I mean, it's not a fluke. They are a good team.
No, it's not an accident. It's definitely not an
They
accident.
shot over 50%. I mean, we didn't stay for the whole game because we didn't care about who won. But before we left, they were shooting well over 50% for the game from the field. It's like, it's not a fluke, boys. I don't know who they'll play between Texas and Purdue, but maybe their magic Cinderella dust runs out in the Sweet 16. But I'm telling you, through 2 games, if you put any other jersey on them, they would be household names right now. They would not be a 15 seed, and all the credit in the world to Shaheem Holloway and what he's done with that program. And I hope St. Peter's gets a lot of money from this run because he deserves to be paid, and if they don't pay him, somebody will.
Yep, I agree with that.
2 things from kind of that side of the bracket, those matchups. One, Dave highlighted this earlier. We should not have automatic qualifying bids play in those first 4 in.
No,
That's
I think
ridiculous.
that's stupid.
And on the same note, we should not have mid-majors playing in the first round if they're seeded the same as Power 5 schools. That San Francisco-Murray State game, that was the game of the tournament if you haven't seen it. Absolutely insane. Overtime finish at like 12 o'clock or 1 a.m. Every game felt like a game winner, but those teams should not have met there. You had Miami and USC sitting over there, another 7-10 game. Switch those up. Give those mid-majors more chances.
Yeah.
Don't make them play each other and knock those small schools out against, going head-to-head. But talking about St. Peter's, I agree 100%. And in both those games, it didn't look like St. Peter's was playing Kentucky or St. Peter's was playing Murray State. It was the other way around. Kentucky was playing St. Peter's. They set the tone. And I think that's the difference. They can come into a team like Purdue that starts a 7'4" center and brings in Travion Williams at 6'11", 280 off the bench. And they'll take them out of the game because Purdue will be playing St. Peter's. It will be St. Peter's style. They'll have to match up with St. Peter's. And they're a team that's dangerous right now. I mean, 100%. Holloway's done an amazing job, and you can see it in the execution and the effort that those guys play with.
I saw a stat.
Go
ahead, Dave.
They actually have the opposite problem of North Carolina. Or it's not even a problem. They have depth. They don't care to get in foul trouble. They muck it up on the defensive end because they know they got 5 other guys that are going to go in and do the exact same job. So I think that is going to be huge, especially if they play Purdue and they have a 7-footer. If you get him in foul trouble at all, like you just run 5 guys at him.
Every year there's always like the big Cinderella story, and generally they're most of the time not a 15 seed, but there have been like 5 or 6 15 seeds make it to the Sweet 16. 3 only?
Florida Gulf Coast and Oral Roberts in 2013. Had to look that one up to try and make myself feel better.
But like I saw a list of teams. I don't know if it was to make it to the Sweet 16 or actually to make it past that second round or something like that. I don't know. But the win-loss record after they've made it to the Sweet 16, that Sweet 16 game to get to the Elite Eight, I think there was, I don't remember how many teams were there, but like nobody has won that game to get to the Elite Eight yet. Mark my words, the most watched game, probably other than the Final Four or the National Championship, is going to be St. Peter's versus whoever they play. Because I think the word is out on them. They're no secret anymore. People know that they're the real deal, and they want to watch them play. And, social media is a big tool to help spread that awareness about a basketball team. This is probably one of the better stories in recent years just to follow because you took down a giant in Kentucky, and you took down probably the best mid-major team in the country in Murray State, who was rolling as a team with the 21-game winning streak, like you mentioned. But a team like that wins 2 games of those caliber teams or against those kinds of teams, like I said, it's not a fluke, man. And you kind of want to see a little bit more magic happen. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. There's still a little doubt in everybody's mind. It's a 15 seed, but I'll say this, and I'll bet I'll put this up against anybody's statement. College basketball now the disparity and the gaps between the players from the top level all the way down to the Division II, Division III level, the gap is closing in terms of talent. There are talented teams all over this country. There's talented players all over this country, and you know that because of games like this. You know that everybody on St. Peter's roster was probably not highly recruited. Probably that might have been one of their 1, 2, maybe 3 Division I scholarship offers, period.
No player on their roster was ranked as a high school recruit.
Exactly. And they're out here beating NBA players. Like, they're beating players from Kentucky that are going to play in the NBA for a while. And now you're seeing small schools like Bellarmine, who went from a Division II all the way up into Division I, made that jump, and won their conference the first year. They're a bunch of small kids from Kentucky and surrounding areas. They're not recruiting nationally. So the gap in player talent is closing. A gap between a 5-star player and a no-ranked player is not as big as it once was. And I think that's why you're seeing so many upsets in the NCAA tournament nowadays, is because teams are made up of players all around the country and all around the world that are pretty similar in talent. So it's really cool to see. And I think baseball's already been like this in college baseball. Anybody can win any game. But now you're seeing it in college basketball. College football, obviously, there's going to be a huge step. But college basketball and college baseball, definitely not the best team doesn't win all the time. And it's probably around 30% of the time the best team doesn't win. So that's really cool to see. And that's what makes it so interesting. That's why it's so intriguing. And it's fun to watch.
Yeah, college football isn't having the same impact because you have so many players involved each individual play. But you look at the combine, we were talking about earlier, it's still happening in that sport. You're seeing more and more talent. I mean, guys breaking records and more of position groups standing out. Like, athletes are just getting better. It's awesome to see. Hope my kids can keep up.
I think baseball and basketball definitely have the bigger advantage over football because they're year round. I mean, those kids, that's all they live and breathe it. It was pretty cool. Quincy High School put on the Quincy Shootout this year. And if you boys are free next January, you have a place to stay at my house so we can go check out these teams. But they brought in, a bunch of nationally ranked teams, these prospect schools, and it was the best high school basketball action I've ever seen. I mean, we got just oops and off the backboards and draining fadeaway threes and all that. What I'm getting at is these high school kids are playing them. Like, it might not be the first time these St. Peter's kids have played against a Ty Washington. Heck, Ty might have been in a tournament in New Jersey last year, and they might have played it. So it's like the exposure that basketball has in high school and travel ball, it's where these upsets, I mean, that's where they start. I mean, it's not like Shaheem Holloway is just this amazing coach and got lucky. No, it's because he got good kids and they have played good competition their entire life and they know how to react in moments. So, I think that's where football is going to be harder because, if you, like we said earlier, football players are just aggressive individuals. And if you put them out there for more than however many games a year, injuries happen, they're not going to hold up. And it's a little different story. And I think that's why football will always kind of have that. The Blue Bloods will always be the Blue Bloods. Whereas, we see Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, North Carolina. It's not wild to think that they'll get knocked off by a 15 or 14 or 16 seed. So,
and you had a lot of close calls. I mean, Gonzaga was down in the second half in their game. Chattanooga, and I know I didn't say it on the show last week, but I was going to pick Chattanooga as my Cinderella until I saw the Illinois matchup. I just didn't like it. Kofi Coburn, if I'm an NFL executive, I'm putting a 7th round pick on him. Just giving him the option if he wants to. Like, talk about a third down, a pass situation, D tackle. Just put your hands up, man. Nobody's moving you. Nobody's throwing over you. But I really think that we're going to see it more and more going forward. There's a lot of parity in college sports.
Yeah, and we can go on and on about the NCAA tournament, but I mean, it's happening as we speak. We're going to hit on it next week. I think by the time we get to next week's show, the tournament is probably going to be winding down a little bit more. We're going to have a little bit clearer of a picture. I'm not sure when the Final Four is scheduled or when the national championship is scheduled, but we'll have a clearer picture.
Should be April 2nd should be the Final Four, and Monday, April the 4th should be the championship.
Yeah, so things will be winding down. We're going to get closer to the end. We'll have a better analysis of who's there, how they got there, who had the hardest road, who's going to be a little bit fatigued, and who has the biggest advantages moving forward. But we're going to end the show right here. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it. This is our 5th episode. Hopefully we're getting better and better every week. We've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. We've heard a lot of good things from our friends and family. They listen to us every week. And if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Share it out with your friends. We know that it takes a while to get some traction on YouTube, but we're here. We're trying to make it happen. We're not looking for anything special. Just kind of subscribe to us, show us some love. It helps us out a lot. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, all those things, we're on all those platforms. So make sure that you follow us, download the episodes. It helps us out as well to rank in some of those categories on Google. But we're going to close it out. We're the Trifecta Sports Podcast. I'm Frank with Dave and Coop. Appreciate it. Y'all have a great night. Have a great week. Love you guys.